Welcome to Conspiracy Deconstructed. We're the show that really gets into the weeds on the stories and, well, sometimes the conspiracies that capture public attention.
And today we're definitely tackling a big one, not just a movie, but the whole whirlwind surrounding it. We're talking about Sound of Freedom.
Yeah, it was this huge, kind of unexpected box office smash in 2023, a film about child trafficking.
But almost immediately, its success got tangled up with this other story, a really pervasive narrative, actually.
A conspiracy theory, essentially, suggesting the movie itself was under attack.
From powerful forces trying to shut it down.
Okay, let's just dive right in. The cold open, the core theory here. Proponents, the people who really got behind this film, they didn't just see it as a movie.
No, not at all. For them, it was more like an exposé, a direct threat to a secret, powerful group, a global cabal, if you will.
Right. And this cabal, these elites, they're supposedly hidden within Hollywood. Big theater chains like AMC, the mainstream media.
And according to the theory, these elites aren't just powerful, they're directly involved in child sex trafficking at the highest levels.
So the thinking goes, they had to suppress Sound of Freedom, sabotage it, stop people from seeing it, because it was getting too close to their dark truth.
Exactly. Any obstacle the film faced, any negative press, any technical glitch, it wasn't random, it was proof.
Proof that the movie was hitting a nerve, that the conspiracy was real. The film's success, then, wasn't just surprising. It was framed as this massive victory against the powerful suppressors.
And that specific narrative, how box office numbers and supposed sabotage become evidence of a global conspiracy. That's what we're going to deconstruct today.
We'll trace where these rumors started, look hard at the so-called evidence.
And then, importantly, we'll explore why. Why did this particular theory resonate so strongly with so many people? It's a fascinating look at, how real issues get mixed up with disinformation.
Okay, so first, the basics of the film itself. Sound of Freedom. Stars Jim Caviezel.
Right, playing Tim Mallard. He's based on a real person, a former Homeland Security agent who founded an organization called Operation Underground Railroad, or AWU-ER.
And the movie depicts his work basically rescuing children from international sex trafficking rings. Pretty heavy stuff.
Very heavy. And its release was, well, explosive is maybe the right word. Angel Studios distributed it. They're known more for faith-based projects.
And it came out July 4th, 2023. And just immediately, bang, it did huge numbers.
Huge. It actually beat Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny on its opening day, which, nobody predicted.
No way. And it kept hitting #1 at the box office several times in that first week.
For a film made on a reported budget of, $14.5 million? That's tiny compared to the summer blockbusters it was competing against.
Absolutely tiny. So how did it pull that off? Part of it was this pay-it-forward thing, right?
Yeah, that was a really key element. Angel Studios promoted this model where you could buy tickets for other people, strangers, essentially.
And there's this message after the film with Jim Caviezel directly asking people to do that.
And that really changed the dynamic. It wasn't just watching a movie anymore. It felt like participating. Like you were part of this movement to fight this horrible evil by getting more people to see the film.
So the audience felt like activists, not just viewers.
Precisely. And that created this incredibly passionate, engaged fan base ready to defend the film.
And right then, July 2023, as it's blowing up, that's when the suppression rumors really ignite.
Yeah. Tickets were genuinely hard to get in some places just because of the demand. But online, especially TikTok, Twitter,
people started saying it wasn't just demand, it was sabotage.
Exactly. Theaters were making it hard to see. And this idea found fertile ground because of the film's backstory.
The long delay getting it released.
Right. It wasn't a new film, actually. Filming wrapped way back in 2018.
2018, so 5 years before it came out. Why the holdup?
Well, the original distributor was set to be 20th Century Fox, but then Disney bought Fox in 2019.
The Disney acquisition.
Yep. And according to reports, Disney inherited the film but decided not to release it. It sat on the shelf for years until Angel Studios picked up the rights in 2023.
Okay, so for someone already suspicious of, say, big corporations or Hollywood,
Disney shelving the film looked like Exhibit A, early proof that the powers that be didn't want this story told. It didn't matter why Disney made that decision from a business perspective.
The interpretation was already set. Suppression.
It fed right into the narrative. You have this film about fighting hidden evil, starring an actor known for some controversial views. It gets shelved by a mega corporation, then becomes a grassroots sensation.
It's almost like the perfect storm for a conspiracy theory like this to flourish. The story about the film started mirroring the story in the film.
Okay, so to really get why this theory took off, we need to look at the specific things proponents were pointing to as evidence. It wasn't just vague suspicion.
They had examples, things people were supposedly experiencing themselves.
Right. The big one was what they called theater sabotage. And the main target, the main villain in these stories, became AMC theaters.
Why AMC specifically? Just because they're the biggest chain?
Probably partly that, yeah. But social media just exploded with anecdotes, viral videos, posts, people claiming they were being actively prevented from watching the movie inside AMC theaters.
Prevented how? Like, what were the actual claims?
All sorts of things. Reports of screenings being suddenly evacuated, no real explanation given, just everybody out.
Okay.
Then there were the technical glitches. A boxer, David Nino Rodriguez, tweeted about his experience, said the volume in his AMC screening was turned down so low it was nearly inaudible.
And he thought that was deliberate.
He definitely framed it that way, implying it was intentional interference, not just, a technical issue.
Which happens sometimes in theaters, right? Volume issues, projector problems.
Of course. But in this context, every little problem became potential evidence. The most common one, maybe, was the air conditioning.
The AC.
Yeah, seriously. Tons of reports online about the AC being broken or turned off, making the theater unbearably hot. People said they had to leave and get refunds.
Wow.
One person even claimed their pre-ordered tickets got canceled and refunded specifically because the AC was supposedly out.
So the idea was, AMC was happy to sell the tickets, but didn't want people to actually sit through the movie comfortably.
That was the implication. That these weren't just random maintenance failures during a busy summer. They were targeted acts to discourage viewing. Little acts of sabotage.
Okay, that's the theater stuff. What about beyond the multiplex?
Well, there was the broader claim of a Hollywood and media blackout. This ties back to the Disney delay we mentioned.
Right, the Disney shelving it in 2019 was the first sign of industry suppression.
Exactly. And proponents felt the mainstream media wasn't giving the film its due or was focusing too much on the controversies around it.
Like the QAnon links.
Yeah. Any critical coverage was seen as part of the suppression effort. There were these viral tweets, for instance, claiming CNN was telling people not to see the film.
Was that true? Did CNN actually say that?
We'll get to the fact check later, but the claim itself was powerful. It painted the media as an enemy actively working against the film and its audience.
It sets up that us versus them feeling. They don't want you to see this.
Precisely. And all these pieces, the AC, the volume, the media, the Disney delay, they all served as supporting evidence for the core belief.
The QAnon connection, the idea that this is all orchestrated by a global elite involved in horrific crimes.
Yes, the global control narrative. This is really the engine driving the whole suppression theory. The belief that a hidden group controls everything and silences anyone who exposes them.
And in the QAnon world, what's the ultimate crime this cabal commits?
Child sex trafficking and abuse, on a vast, organized scale, often linked to satanic rituals in the more extreme versions.
And the film's star, Jim Caviezel, and Tim Ballard, the man he plays, they didn't exactly distance themselves from these ideas, did they?
Not at all. That's crucial. Caviezel has spoken at events linked to QAnon. He's publicly promoted some of the most extreme QAnon-adjacent theories.
Like the adrenochrome theory.
Yes, the adrenochrome harvesting theory, which is, well, it's a grotesque idea.
Can you just briefly explain what that theory claims for listeners who might not know?
Sure. The theory posits that elites torture children to harvest a chemical compound called adrenochrome from their blood, supposedly because it acts like a rejuvenating drug, extending life, or giving a high.
That's disturbing.
It is. And Caviezel has explicitly talked about this in the context of fighting child trafficking.
Yeah.
Then you have Tim Ballard, the film's subject, who also seemed to affirm belief in the adrenochrome theory in an interview.
So for believers, the people at the very center of the film are validating these extreme conspiracy theories.
Right, which makes the film itself seem like it must be revealing these dark secrets. And if it is, then of course the powerful elites implicated would try desperately to suppress it.
The logic becomes circular.
Mm-hmm.
The suppression proves the conspiracy,
Yeah.
and the conspiracy explains the suppression.
Exactly. It creates a completely self-contained, self-validating belief system.
Okay, so we've laid out the case as the believers see it. Now let's switch gears and look at the actual facts, the verifiable information from the sources. Let's start with those theater sabotage claims. The AC, the volume, the evacuations at AMC.
This is where the conspiracy theory really starts to fall apart under scrutiny. The most high-profile refutation came directly from the top.
AMC's CEO.
Yep, Adam Aron. He went on Twitter X now and directly addressed the rumors. He called the claims astonishing and so much garbage. He even questioned if it was bots or, quote, haters spreading the misinformation.
Strong words from CEO. Did he offer any proof, though, beyond just denying it?
He did. He gave concrete numbers. He pointed out that on one particular weekend day, AMC alone showed Sound of Freedom something like 3,000 times across nearly 600 theaters in the U.S.
3,000 screenings in one day.
Yes, reaching over 100,000 viewers just at AMC on that single day. His point was pretty clear. If we're trying to suppress this movie, we're doing a spectacularly bad job of it.
That's a lot of viewers for supposedly suppressed film.
It is. But, you know, for someone deeply invested in the conspiracy, even that denial can be twisted.
How so?
They'd just say, of course the CEO would deny it. He's part of the cover-up. It's that cognitive dissonance again. Evidence against the belief just reinforces the belief for the truly committed.
Right. But what about the people who actually made the film? Angel Studios. What did they say about all this alleged sabotage by theaters?
This is probably the most definitive nail in the coffin for the theater sabotage theory. Angel Studios themselves publicly defended the theater chains.
The distributor defended the exhibitors.
Absolutely. Jeffrey Harmon, one of Angel Studios' co-founders, specifically thanked Adam Aron and AMC. He said AMC and the other major chains, Cinemark and Regal, had been absolutely wonderful to work with.
Wow. So not sabotage, but partnership.
Exactly. Harmon said the theaters were actively helping them add more screens because the demand was so high during a really packed summer movie season. The people with the most direct financial stake in the film's success flatly denied any suppression by the theaters.
Okay, that seems pretty clear-cut. What about the Hollywood and media blackout claims? Specifically, that CNN told people not to watch it.
That CNN claim is demonstrably false. Fact-checkers looked into it. The news segment that was shared online alongside that claim simply didn't contain any such instruction or demand.
So it was just made up or misinterpreted.
It seems to have been entirely fabricated or wildly misinterpreted. Now, did mainstream media cover the film? Yes. They reported on its surprising box office success quite a bit.
But they also covered the controversies, the QAnon links.
Correct. And that critical coverage, which focused on the ideology associated with Caviezel and Ballard and the film's audience, was then framed by believers as evidence of media bias or suppression. But reporting on the context isn't the same as telling people not to see a movie.
And the Disney delay, the 2019 decision not to release it.
Again, Angel Studios and the film's director, Alejandro Monteverde, consistently described that as a distribution issue, a business decision made years before the film became a political lightning rod. Disney passed. Angel eventually saw an opportunity and crafted a release strategy that, well, clearly worked. There's no evidence it was some grand conspiracy back in 2019.
Okay, now the really dark core of it, the QAnon link and adrenochrome, you mentioned this isn't a new idea.
Not at all, and understanding its history is crucial. The adrenochrome harvesting conspiracy, which really spiked in popularity around 2020, particularly within QAnon circles, is essentially a modern rebranding of a very old, very ugly anti-Semitic trope.
Maybe blood libel.
Precisely. Blood libel is this centuries-old false accusation that Jewish people ritually murder non-Jewish children, especially Christian children, to use their blood in religious ceremonies. It's been used to justify horrific violence and persecution for centuries.
And the adrenochrome theory just updates that.
In essence, yes. It replaces the explicitly named Jewish cabal with a vaguer global elite or satanic cabal, and it replaces blood for rituals with adrenochrome for youth power. But the underlying structure, a secret, powerful group preying on innocent children for vile purposes, is identical. It launders an ancient anti-Semitic myth for a modern audience.
Making it easier to spread in spaces that might reject overt anti-Semitism.
Exactly. It uses the very real horror of child exploitation as a vehicle for an old prejudice.
But what about the science? Is adrenochrome even a real substance? Can it do what the theory claims?
Adrenochrome is a real chemical compound, yes. It's formed when adrenaline oxidizes. Scientists can synthesize it in a lab quite easily.
Synthesize, so you don't need children.
Absolutely not. The idea that it requires harvesting from tortured children is pure fiction, designed to be maximally horrific. And scientifically, the claims about its effects are just baseless.
No magic youth elixir.
None whatsoever. Dr. Joe Schwartz at McGill University, who studies pseudoscience, has pointed out it has absolutely no rejuvenating effects. There was some minor early research into possible psychedelic properties, but even that's highly questionable. It's been thoroughly debunked by scientific communities and reputable sources.
So the core scientific premise of the QAnon theory is just wrong.
Completely wrong. It's pure fantasy built on an old hate trope.
And yet the film's director, Monteverde, he denied the film was intentionally QAnon related, right? He said work started before QAnon really existed.
He did. He emphasized this film started development in 2015, well before QAnon emerged in 2017. And the movie itself, if you just watch the film in isolation, it does maintain a kind of plausible deniability.
How so?
It doesn't explicitly mention adrenochrome. It doesn't name specific politicians or elites as villains. It focuses on the general crime of child trafficking, which is undeniably real and horrific. But the context outside the film especially, the very public statements by Caviezel and Ballard endorsing QAnon-adjacent ideas like adrenochrome, completely changed how a large segment of the audience perceived it.
It turned the film into a sort of validation or even a recruiting tool for that worldview, regardless of the director's intent.
Exactly. Critics weren't wrong to point out the QAnon connection. It was inseparable from the film's reception and the surrounding discourse, even if it wasn't explicit in the script itself.
This is where it gets really critical, I think. We've shown the suppression theory itself doesn't hold water, but the impact of that theory and how it latched onto the very real issue of human trafficking, that's significant.
It's deeply significant and quite troubling. What we saw happen here is a classic case of co-option. A legitimate, horrifying crisis, child trafficking, was effectively hijacked and used as fuel for a political narrative, specifically the QAnon narrative.
And the way QAnon talks about trafficking, the Save the Children slogan, it's effective emotionally. But is it helpful for actually fighting trafficking?
That's the problem. It's often counterproductive. QAnon messaging tends to present a highly sensationalized, oversimplified picture of what trafficking looks like. It focuses on dramatic, often international, rescues from shadowy, all-powerful villains.
Which distracts from the more common, complex realities.
That's exactly. It distracts from the systemic issues, poverty, homelessness, addiction, domestic violence, lack of opportunity that make people vulnerable to exploitation right here in our own communities. Trafficking isn't always a kidnapping by a stranger for some global cabal. It's often far more insidious and closer to home.
You mentioned the white slave panic trope earlier. Can you expand on that? How does that fit in?
Sure. This is a historical pattern where moral panics about trafficking tend to center on the supposed vulnerability of white, usually female victims. It often involves lurid tales of innocence corrupted, focusing on purity and dramatic rescue.
And the harm there is.
The harm is that it erases the reality of who is actually most vulnerable. Sources and experts in the anti-trafficking field consistently point out that trafficking disproportionately impacts marginalized groups: people of color, immigrants, LGBTQ plus youth, people experiencing homelessness or poverty.
Their stories don't fit the sensationalized pure victim narrative as easily.
Precisely. And narratives like Sound of Freedom, while raising awareness in one sense, can inadvertently reinforce this skewed perspective if the surrounding discourse focuses only on that specific type of rescue narrative.
Real anti-trafficking organizations have been critical of this focus, haven't they?
Yes. Groups like My Life, My Choice, which works with survivors, they argue that focusing heavily on these dramatic, often foreign-set rescue stories lets the public off the hook.
Off the hook, Al.
It allows people to feel concerned and outraged about something happening over there, perpetrated by mustache-twirling villains, without having to confront the uncomfortable truths about the systemic inequalities and vulnerabilities that exist in all communities, including their own. It makes trafficking seem like an external problem requiring heroic saviors, rather than a complex issue needing community-based solutions and systemic change.
And this diversion of focus has real consequences for resources, right?
Absolutely. When time, energy, and money are spent chasing conspiracy theories like adrenochrome or debating whether AMC is sabotaging screenings,
that's time and energy not spent on providing actual support services for survivors, or funding prevention programs, or advocating for policy changes.
Exactly. It drains resources. Plus, the constant sensationalism can be deeply invalidating for survivors whose real experiences might be far less dramatic, but no less dramatic.
It might make them hesitant to come forward if their story doesn't match the Hollywood version.
That's a real concern raised by advocates. It can also drown out the voices of survivor leaders who are trying to share nuanced perspectives on prevention and recovery. Their expertise gets lost in the noise of the conspiracy theories.
Let's talk about the disinformation tactics used. You mentioned false storytelling.
Right. This involves crafting narratives that resonate emotionally, often focusing on themes like stolen innocence. QAnon is masterful at this. They create these stark good versus evil stories, often using graphic, sometimes fabricated imagery.
And this creates a specific role for the audience.
Yes, the heroic spectator. The audience feels like they are witnessing and opposing this profound evil, often positioning a specific figure, like Trump in many QAnon narratives, or perhaps Ballard Caviezel in this context, as the unique savior figure who can fight it. It simplifies complex problems into a battle needing a hero.
And that ties into the co-opting mechanism.
Perfectly. Extremist groups know that latching on to issues with broad moral consensus is incredibly effective for recruitment and influence. And what has broader consensus than protecting children?
Nothing, really.
So, by framing their anti-government, anti-elite agenda as part of the vital mission to save the children, they can draw in people who would otherwise never engage with their core ideology. The moral high ground becomes a Trojan horse for other political goals.
Okay, so the facts debunk the suppression claims. The QAnon elements are based on harmful myths. The focus might even distract from real anti-trafficking work. So why? Why did millions passionately believe the suppression narrative, even in the face of contradictory evidence from the filmmakers themselves?
It really comes down to some fundamental aspects of human psychology. The appeal of the global control narrative is incredibly powerful.
Because it makes sense of a chaotic world.
Exactly. Life is complex. Global problems like trafficking are deeply disturbing and have tangled roots. A narrative that says, no, it's actually simple. There's a secret group of bad guys pulling all the strings, offers immense psychological relief.
It provides clarity. Good versus evil. Us versus them.
Right. It identifies clear enemies, the elites, the media, Hollywood, whoever, which is much easier to grasp than, say, grappling with the complexities of poverty, systemic bias, and global economic factors that contribute to exploitation.
And this resonates more strongly with people who already distrust institutions.
Definitely. If you already feel let down or ignored by government or suspicious of corporations and the media, a theory that paints them as actively malicious and engaged in the worst imaginable crimes feels validating. It confirms your existing worldview. Research shows people feeling uncertain or powerless are more drawn to these kinds of all-encompassing theories.
And the online environment pours fuel on this fire, doesn't it? The echo chambers.
Massively. Social media algorithms are designed to show us more of what we already engage with. So if you start clicking on content about Sound of Freedom suppression,
you get served more and more of it.
Precisely. You end up in a filter bubble, an echo chamber, where everyone seems to share the same perspective, and contradictory information is filtered out or framed as enemy propaganda.
And just seeing the same claims repeated makes them feel more true.
There's strong evidence for that. Repeated exposure to information, even if it's false, increases our tendency to believe it's true. Familiarity breeds acceptance within these closed loops.
And this leads to that spiral of distrust you mentioned earlier. Can you walk us through that again?
Sure. So maybe you start with a relatively small belief, say. You see a post about the AC being off at an AMC. You find it suspicious. That initial suspicion makes you distrust AMC, maybe corporations in general, a bit more.
Okay.
Because your distrust is now higher, you're more receptive to the next piece of conspiratorial information, maybe about the media lying, or even something more extreme like adrenochrome. Believing that further deepens your distrust of all official sources.
So each step makes you more vulnerable to the next, more extreme claim.
Exactly. It's a reinforcing cycle.
Right.
Belief leads to distrust, which increases susceptibility to more conspiratorial beliefs, which further increases distrust. You spiral deeper into that alternative reality.
And finally, there's the allure of feeling like you're in on a secret. Secret knowledge.
Yes, this is huge. Believing the suppression theory isn't just about explaining events, it's about identity. It makes you feel like you're one of the few who are awake, who see the real truth behind the curtain.
While everyone else is asleep or fooled by the mainstream narrative.
Right. It gives a sense of superiority, of special insight. And in the case of Sound of Freedom, the film's success against the odds becomes your success. You were part of the movement that fought back against the powerful suppressors just by buying a ticket or paying it forward.
That message after the film, comparing it to Uncle Tom's Cabin, that really played into this, didn't it?
Absolutely. It explicitly framed watching the movie and encouraging others to do so as participating in a historic, righteous cause, akin to the fight against slavery. It wasn't just entertainment, it was activism. It was being part of something important, something world-changing.
It gives purpose, a shared identity with fellow believers.
Mm-hmm. And that feeling, that sense of belonging to a virtuous group fighting profound evil, can be incredibly powerful enough to override factual evidence that contradicts the narrative. The identity becomes more important than the facts. Hashtag tag outro.
So wrapping this up, our look into the Sound of Freedom controversy shows a really clear picture. A film dealing with the horrific reality of human trafficking got caught up in and arguably fueled by a disinformation campaign.
Yeah, core findings are pretty stark. The claims of active suppression by Hollywood or theaters, they're unsubstantiated, even refuted by the film's own distributor, Angel Studios.
The specific claims of theater sabotage seem to fall apart under scrutiny of the data.
And the underlying QAnon theories, especially about adrenochrome, aren't just baseless scientifically. They're modern versions of deeply harmful historical anti-Semitic myths.
The real takeaway, perhaps, isn't about whether Hollywood tried to stop the film they didn't, demonstrably. It's about how the narrative of suppression and the co-option of the anti-trafficking cause by QAnon.
How that actually might harm the cause itself. By diverting resources, spreading misinformation, and promoting sensationalized rescue fantasies over the complex work of addressing root causes and supporting survivors long-term.
It really highlights the power of these moral high ground arguments. Saving children is maybe the ultimate example. How effectively they can be used to mobilize people, even if it's in service of unrelated or even harmful political or conspiratorial agendas.
Which leaves us with a really critical question, I think. Something for you, the listener, to consider.
When a narrative focuses heavily on a simplified, heroic rescue story, which undoubtedly raises some awareness, but that narrative also becomes deeply entangled with misinformation and potentially undermines the nuanced, systemic work needed by real anti-trafficking organizations. What's the net effect?
Is the awareness gained worth the potential damage caused by the distraction and the distortion? Where is that line between shedding light on an issue and exploiting it for other means?
Something to think about. What stands out to you from this? Let us know. Until next time on Conspiracy Deconstructed, keep questioning.